Thank you. What a delight to be here. And I'm so grateful for all that's already been said. Hopefully I can add something to what's already been a really rich panel. I want to start with a quote by a pediatrician and psychoanalyst, D.W. Winnicott, and I'm going to follow his thought a little bit in my remarks. He was a great observer of mothers and their small children, and he spoke often to mothers. And once in speaking to mothers, he said this: "The baby does not know that the space around is maintained by you. How careful you are that the world shall not impinge before the infant has found it. By a living and breathing quietness, you follow the life in the infant with the life in yourself, and you wait for the gestures that come from the infant, gestures that lead to your being discovered." Dr. Schindler already mentioned Hans Urs von Balthasar, and I'm going to share again the quote that she mentioned of his. He wrote about the gaze between the smiling mother and the young infant, and he said that in that encounter, the horizon of all unlimited being opens itself for him, revealing 4 things to him: that he is one in love with the mother, even being other than the mother. Therefore, all being is one. That love is good, therefore, all being is good. That love is true, therefore, all being is true. That love evokes joy, therefore, all being is beautiful. It is maternal love and the special environment created by that love that allows the child to discover her, the mother, right? And through her being in its unity, goodness, truth, and beauty. And within those early interactions, to discover himself, a unique being possessed of those same 4 qualities. Now, while a mother's smiling gaze introduces her child to the nature of being, she is not pure being, right? But a finite and fallen creature with her own weaknesses, limits, and insecurities. The prospect of becoming a mother then can stir up great fear and trepidation. Mothering is all at once one of the most ordinary of tasks, right? And among the most extraordinary, crucial as it is for the person and for society. So in the few minutes I have today, I want to convey a couple things. One is a bit about what mothers ordinarily do in loving their children, especially their very young children, because it's especially at the beginning of life that the maternal function is so crucial. Fathers become more important later in the developmental trajectory. And then I want to take up a little bit about the fears of mothering that some of you may experience. Some of you already are mothers, but that can be quite scary as well. Okay, so first, a little bit on what Dr. Winnicott said about the ordinary devoted mother. He gave a series of radio broadcasts, actually, on the BBC in the 1950s. You can listen to snippets of them. You can find them online. They're lovely. What is it that the ordinary devoted mother does for her young child? Well, from the beginning, she holds her infant, and she creates a holding environment. You know, I actually thought when I heard the singing before our panel, I thought, this is maternal. It's like holding. There's something about the singing that was like a holding environment. So Winnicott said, holding, and this is a quote, protects from physiological insult, takes into account the infant's skin sensitivities, touch, temperature, auditory sensitivity, visual sensitivity, sensitivity to falling, and of the infant's lack of knowledge of the existence of anything other than the self. It includes the whole routine of care throughout the day and night, and it is not the same with any 2 infants because it is part of the infant, and no 2 infants are alike. Also, it follows the minute day-to-day changes belonging to the infant's growth and development, both physical and psychological. I want to make a few observations about what he's saying here. It's so simple, holding in a way, but also so rich and so complex. First, holding involves the whole infant. In the early weeks of life, the baby's physical and psychological needs are very close, indistinguishable even. Maternal holding is very physical, right? It's a non-verbal mode of communication between mother and child, in which the whole complex of his needs and sensitivities are taken up. The second thing is that, in general, a mother creates a holding environment for her child quite unself-consciously and naturally, right? She kind of just knows how to do it, as long as she herself has had this kind of experience of being held. Third, when good enough care, good enough mothering, that's another Winnicottian phrase, is provided, it's not generic, but it's specific to this child, attuned and responsive to this one. So patterns of mother-child interaction can be observed and described scientifically, and there's wonderful work that's been done on that, right? But there's a unique relationship between each mother and infant. So no one knows this infant like his mother. Furthermore, technical correctness and perfection are not the aim. But as I said, good enough mothering, where misses and ruptures occur but are mended before too long. In fact, all this, the misses and the ruptures, the disappointments, actually help the child learn not only to trust, but to bear disappointments and hurts. Fourth, holding is developmentally attuned. The infant is totally dependent on mothering, right? I mean, this is a very dramatic thing to face. I see a nodding face, maybe one of the mothers in the crowd, right? That the little infant is totally dependent on maternal care. Winnicott famously said, there's no such thing as an infant. There's no such thing as an infant, only an infant and a mother. They're a pair, they're a unity. You can't conceive of an infant alone, right? Over time, though, mothers will need to shift, allowing the child's differentiation and exploration as he develops his own capacities. And this actually involves a lot of losses. Every separation will involve a kind of loss for a mother. Now, this brings me to just a couple notes on fathers. I want to just say a couple things about fathers who seem to be entirely excluded from this picture so far. So the father, first of all, helps to create a secure environment for the mother. The father creates the holding environment for the mother, right? That allows her to focus intensely on her newborn child. His direct care, in the life of the infant, the father's direct care is a participation in the maternal function. His paternal care becomes crucial later on, right? For example, in facilitating a distinctive sense of self and separating from mom and learning about limits and boundaries. Hers is the more imminent task, and his is the transcendent, okay? So what does this kind of maternal care provide for a child? I want to mention two foundational things here. First, the young child gains an internal sense of what Winnicott calls a continuity of being. A continuity of being. A sense of having a personal and unique existence, of being alive, not just physically, but psychically and emotionally. He said if maternal care is not good enough, then the infant does not really come into existence. Now, he's not speaking objectively, the infant is there, right, but subjectively. So if this doesn't happen, the personality becomes built on the basis of reactions to emotional impingement. So the child feels that he needs to defend himself, and this becomes the basis of his personality without maternal care. So we could say that maternal care provides the foundation of the whole personality of the child. He gains awareness of his inner world and feels both secure and alive in himself. A second and related fruit of good enough mothering is the development of a secure attachment bond. And here the work of John Bowlby is very important. Through her attuned and contingent communication with the child, a mother becomes the first attachment figure. She becomes, first, a secure base from which her little one can explore the world. So just think about a toddler. I mean, if a mother were here with her toddler and he started to walk around, he would reference her, look back at her from time to time, right? But if he lost view of her, he would become upset. He can explore the world as long as she's there, right? And he knows that she's there. So her presence makes it safe to explore and learn about the world, right? And we heard so beautifully about how the family creates a way for children to learn about the world from Dr. Schindler. She's also a safe haven when he's distressed or afraid. She comforts and soothes him before he is able to soothe his own strong feelings. So if while exploring that new place, right, something were to fall and startle him, or he were to fall down, what would he do? He would reach out for his mother or run back to her. And even as he gets bigger, he knows that if he has those young, distressed, vulnerable feelings, again, she'll be there, right? So sometimes a mother knows that a kindergartner, for example, might need to be held like a baby from time to time, right? And all of us, even into adulthood, need emotionally to be held from time to time. Attachment and dependency needs change, but they don't go away. We always have them. So through early maternal care, the child gains a sense of himself, both as an agent who can take action and explore the world, and as a dependent creature who is safe in the arms of another. He comes to expect that he'll be cared for, that others and the ultimate other will provide for him. So let's turn now to fears of becoming a mother. First, I want to just give a brief sketch of what motherhood asks of a woman, some of which I've touched on and have been touched on by others in the panel. First, it asks that she offer her body as another person's first home. Her own bodily boundaries and sense of herself shift to include a new little person. She doesn't give him life or sustain him in being. She's not in control, but she's tasked with providing the environment in which he can grow. And once he's born, he has his own movements in the world, right? At every stage of development, she experiences a loss, precisely as he grows into his own personality and develops his capacities. So he leaves her body. He weans from the breast. He crawls or takes his first steps. He goes away to school, if he goes away to school, or leaves the home to go to college or to go off to pursue his own life. He who was and still is a part of her in a way moves away from her. Both the closeness and the intensity of the demands on one side and the separations and losses on the other can inspire our fear and trepidation. And depending on our own attachment histories, one or the other pole can seem more threatening. So on the one side, we can feel the threat of being taken over by the demands of the child, right? And on the other, we can be frightened by all the losses and the separations, right? They're both can be pretty scary, but some of us may be more frightened by one or by the other. Some of you may have doubts about your own capacity to mother, right? Perhaps you feel that you lacked good enough mothering yourselves. And you fear passing along your own kind of insecurities or fears onto your child. In a book called Parenting from the Inside Out, which draws on an attachment perspective, Siegel and Hartzell note that the best predictor of a child's security of attachment to a caregiver is the way that the adult has made sense of his or her own childhood experiences. So it's not simply how difficult one's childhood was, but the process of making sense of those experiences. So having had insecure early attachments doesn't need to keep you or anyone from being a good enough mother, actually. With a person who is an emotional secure base, it becomes possible to make sense of your own childhood history and your own inner experiences. For some, this might be the work of therapy, You can gain attachment security in adult relationships, right? We call this earned security. And I think what Dr. Schindler said actually about marriage really applies here, right? Spouses are attachment figures for each other and can provide those kinds of corrective experiences. For a variety of reasons, not only personal, but also cultural, you might fear that you just won't know what to do with your child. In the technocratic age in which we live, many come to believe that they have to read all the books on parenting to learn every strategy for sleep, feeding, discipline, and there are lots of books to read, okay? To judge what's the best approach for every kind of parenting issue, let's say. But it's not instruction or even learning that makes a mother able to fulfill her task. If she has received what she needs, she knows. Now, I'm not disparaging good scientific advice or strategies. I'm in the mental health field. I give lots of advice and things like that. But none of this can replace what a mother knows naturally. Winnicott said, only if you can keep what is natural in you is it safe for you to learn anything that doctors and nurses can teach you. My own mother said she was very grateful that she raised her children before there was so much advice. It just allowed her to kind of rely on her natural intuitions. And I'll end here with another quote by Winnicott along these lines. He said, "The mother's adaptation to the baby's needs is a matter that is highly complex and difficult to describe in words. And it can only be done well or well enough by a mother who has temporarily given herself over to the care of her baby. It cannot be done by trying hard or by a study of books. It belongs to the special state that most mothers find themselves in at the end of their 9 months term, a state in which they are naturally orientated to the central thing, the baby." Thank you.